Hey there, folks. I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have the self-titled album from Zach Bryan. So it's fair to say that the commercial explosion of Zach Bryan is nothing short of a phenomenon. I mean, I get it, especially live. Thanks to the flood of music, he's already got more than enough material to fill up one hell of a set. But this sort of crossover backed by Warner with his sound, it can feel unprecedented. I mean, if you haven't been covering him for about 3 years now like I have, or hell, even if you have, and you can tell that they are intending this self-titled album to feel like more of a mass introduction to the population at large than either of the projects he released last year. It's much shorter than American Heartbreak, more named guest stars than Summertime Blues. Zach Bryan himself has taken over production for a more varied sound. I'm not even surprised that it's primed to deliver an album bomb to the Hot 100. This is going to be an event album in a year that hasn't nearly had as many of these projects. And okay, as someone who isn't exactly the biggest Zach Bryan fan, this album frustrates me a lot, as it feels like an amplification of all of his best and worst tendencies. And I'm also certain the fans are going to adore him because of that. Yes, the production is wildly inconsistent from track to track in terms of mixing, mastering, even fidelity of recording, and with the interjection of more instrumental elements like pedal steel, harmonica, fiddle, even synths and a trumpet, it creates a more varied sound, but not exactly a well-blended or executed one. I mean, at least it doesn't all sound the same. But again, for most of these tracks, I kind of get what he was doing. Smaller axes deliberately sounding lo-fi. The gauzy synths that make sense on Fear and Fridays for a more nocturnal sound. The trumpet is a very obvious allusion to military stories that crisscross the album. And while the listen as a whole is way less consistent, the brighter spots, they really pop in contrast. Now, this is also augmented by the guest stars, where Kacey Musgraves just sounds incredible on I Remember Everything, and the War and Treaty really get a chance to shine on Hey Driver. But while the Sierra Ferrell cosign was good on Holy Roller, and I think the song is great, it could have been incredible if it just gave her a little bit more to do beyond the backing vocals, and the less said about that dud of a Lumineers collab, the better. Now, all this is helped along by Zach Bryan's writing, where this is an album that feels like it was written and built while on tour. The recording and production probably highlights that just as much, not just in the exhaustion of constantly being on the road, but the slow-burning cost that comes with a lot of unsettled young men recklessly chasing their dreams, and the long-standing consequences of it to both him and everyone else around him, especially in his hometown. And again, it's not just him either, but his brothers from back when he was in the service, who are really struggling to come home. That being said, there are 3 larger problems that seem to prevent this album from really hitting where it hurts. The first being Zach Bryan's performance, where the burnout is just palpable in his vocal delivery. He just doesn't have the incendiary power of his best material, and it makes me wonder if some of these songs will translate better live, where he's got more firepower. It also leads to my second point, and the lingering thought that this feels like it was recorded on the move, as certain moments don't feel like they have the settled texture to really impact the way they should in the lyrical detail, glancing at a heavier impact rather than landing a proper blow. But finally, and this is a consistent Zach Bryan issue, the structure of this album is a mess. The momentum is really slipshod, the sequencing does not help matters, especially in the back half that gets ballad heavy, and you're left thinking that a tighter construction could make some of these moments hit a lot harder, or hell, at least attach some of the drip-fed singles like Dawn's with Maggie Rogers that would only boost this album's presence on streaming, and it would still kind of fit in a very loose thematic collection of songs. And that's really the best way to describe it now, isn't it? It feels like a compilation of moments for the live shows, or maybe even TikTok, rather than fitting in with a traditional album structure. Which, to be fair, is what the fans want, and why they will argue that this works. But my response is that you can still have a lot of this raw aesthetic leveraged into a tighter, more effective structure. Hell, Zach Bryan proved it last year with Summertime Blues. That being said, I can also say that Zach Bryan's floor of quality when it comes to delivery and songwriting is just so high that even with this mess, the best moments deliver a really goddamn good album. And for as much as Zach Bryan is working to elevate the rest of his scene, it's only a net positive that this does really well. It's maybe not quite great, it certainly is not my favorite of his, but it's also strong enough that it doesn't really matter. So yeah, check it out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more reviews, please be sure to like, share, drop your comments, and subscribe. I'd be happy to hear where folks fall on this one. I think it might be a little contentious. Beyond that, though, if you guys want to get albums onto my schedule or just help support the channel, link to my Patreon or right over there. Again, if you don't want to, tough times, I understand. But as always, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.